urbanization, in the sense it is generally understood that is more and more people living in the urban areas, is perhaps one of the world's biggest transformation that we have ever seen. Today's, I think some figures were given out by Mr. Gadgil, 50.2% of people live in the urban areas and projected to rise to about 30% in the very foreseeable future, another 15 years or so. What is extraordinary about this is that it has been a very unstoppable phenomenon. Even in countries which have tried to control and regulate rural to urban migration, China being one of the examples, that after closing the economy for almost 30 years, right from 1957 to 1980, when the first census was held in China after 1918, that was in 1982, they discovered that people had moved to cities, despite the very heavy regulation, very heavy control on migration. No country has been able to stop it. No country has been able to stop it. In some of the countries in Southeast Asia, in the 60s and the 70s, it was in fashion to say that the way urbanization has been moving on in their countries was very fast. The way the population was getting distributed between cities of various sizes was most undesirable. The large cities were gaining at the cost of the small cities. But when they started looking at a little more with empirical data and back up with research, they found that it was much more expensive to try to control or regulate urbanization or change its direction from large cities to small cities. It was much cheaper to learn to manage them. And the message got there very quickly. Don't meddle with the process or the pace of urbanization. Just allow it to happen. Let the market determine both the pace and the pattern, and urbanization will find its points of equilibrium in a very short period of time. And that is precisely what happened in some of the countries, such as Korea, to some extent China, Indonesia, and many others as well. So that is the kind of the course that many of the countries did. The overall message that they learned was that if used as an ally, urbanization offers immense opportunities. If you do not use it as an ally, if you use it as an adversary, then of course the kind of benefits that we see from urbanization do not naturally come. To some extent, we fall in that category. Let me come to the second point, that what is so distinctive, what is so unique about India's urbanization. Contrary to the impression that you might have got this morning that we are moving very fast, we are urbanizing very fast, India is among the low urbanized countries in the world. There is a reference in the publication distributed this morning to the World Urbanization Prospects 2011. If you just look at that and see where India ranks in the 232 countries for which this UN publication provides the data, we are 195th in order of the level of urbanization out of 232 countries for which this publication gives this data. So this is where we are, 195th out of 232 countries in the world. Not only that, we are also not urbanizing rapidly. In the latest census decade, 2001 to 2011, we grew at an annual exponential rate of 2.76, not unimpressive in itself, but if you compare it with the global average or the average for the developing countries, it is just about the same. Remember that the other countries have moved much faster, their levels of urbanization are much higher, but even when we have large potential to tap, the urbanization potential to tap, we are still urbanizing at 2.76% per annum. And the result being that if you begin to interpret this result, we are not tapping the agglomeration economies that our cities offer, and I think there is a tremendous amount of scope in that one. Let's see what the 2011 census say, whether we are is still continuing the trends that we have observed over the past several decades, or whether we have anything different happening. Particularly, I'm especially referring to 2001 to 2011, because that is the time that India really clocked an average of 7.2% GDP growth rate. Did it make a difference to our urbanization? There are 3 or 4 things that come out from the 2011 census. One is that I do not know how many of you have been seeing these urbanization trends. If you see them right from 1971 onwards, between 1971 and 81, India was urbanizing at the rate of 3.2, 3.3%. Then it declined to 2.9, 2. In the 81, 91, and so on and so forth. For the first time, we are restoring the growth rate. When it had come down in the previous decade of 1991, 2001 to about 2.71%, we have now restored the growth rate to about 2.76%. So there is some hope that the growth and urbanization are getting once again realigned, which was not the case in the previous decades. One. The second important feature that comes out is that for the first time, the net increment to urban population in the 2001 to 2011 decade has been greater than the net increase in rural population.